Dr. Dan's Freedom Forum is on the air.
This is Dr. Dan, and you are listening to Freedom Forum Live, streamed live every Tuesday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, X, and Rumble. My guest tonight is Mary Guy, currently serving as district chair for the Republican Party in North Carolina's 11th District. Mary Guy, welcome as a guest on Dr. Dan's Freedom Forum Live.
Good evening, and thank you. I'm looking forward to this discussion, and I am really happy to be here tonight with you.
Mary Guy, and I should say Dr. Mary Guy, has an impressive resume. She's a Christian, mother of three, married for 43 years, has a PhD in chemistry. She had a stellar career with DuPont, Sterling, AGFA in research, marketing, and project management. And I'm proud to say she's a Tar Heel, born in Durham, North Carolina, moved to Henderson County in 1988, and became involved in Republican Party leadership in 2016. Now, her leadership philosophy, and I will quote, "The district chair's primary responsibility is to serve the county parties, work together to grow the Republican Party, and maximize voter turnout. As district chair, every action I take will be aimed to advance that goal." That's your leadership philosophy, Mary Gay. So let's start out with, what is the role of the Republican Party in each county in the 11th District in the state of North Carolina? And in that context, what is your personal role as district chair?
Well, the 11th District is blessed to have 16 counties. We've got around 6,100 and some odd square miles, so it's a very large district to cover. But each county, even though they have their unique personality and their unique culture, they have one goal, one mission, one objective, and it is the county's responsibility to help win those elections. That's the Republican Party in each county. And I think everybody recognizes the fact that elections are won or lost at the county level. You know, there's no precincts at a district level. It's all county. And so my job as the district chair is to make sure each county is as effective as possible so that we can win those elections and put Republicans into elected office. So that's their job. That's my job. Serve the counties, make sure they're effective.
So you have a role in the party, and the party really in the 11th District is a section, I was going to say a fragment, but I think that's the wrong word to use. You are a part of the larger entity in North Carolina. And of course, the North Carolina party is part of the national party, but we're not even going to deal with that. Right now, you have a role as the county chair in the 11th District. Now, the 11th District is the westernmost, for the most part, the westernmost part of the state of North Carolina. You and I both know that as far as Raleigh is concerned, North Carolina stops at Asheville. So we out here feel generally maligned, forgotten. Forgotten is a good word of saying that. So how do you fit? How does your role, how does the 11th District fit in terms of the overall North Carolina GOP?
Well, and it's funny you say that it stops at Asheville. Some would say it stops at High Point, but we actually have a good relationship with Raleigh. I think with the technology today, we're not as, quote, isolated as maybe we used to feel like we were. We've got Zoom. We participate regularly with the training and with the resources available out of Raleigh. And I guess there's two aspects to the point in terms of isolation. It's like, is the General Assembly neglecting us and not hearing our needs and meeting the things that are unique to our area? Or is it the Republican Party themselves that kind of forget where we are? And I would say in today's environment, that is much less of an issue for both entities than it used to be. Granted, it's a pretty long haul to Raleigh, and I go there every couple of months, sometimes every month. But with the technology and, like we're dealing right now, miles apart, we can live stream and talk. So we have this opportunity with the party leadership, and I believe that the General Assembly actually has been very responsive, at least when I've reached out to them. And I'm not sure that I agree that we are as isolated as we used to be, if that makes sense.
Well, as far as we are probably concerned out here, a lot of us believe that Asheville is San Francisco East. But in terms of the rest of your district,
Mhm.
how what do you feel is the overall philosophy of your constituents in the Western North Carolina portion of the 11th district? What are we like as far as you're concerned?
I would say that this part of the country, people are fiercely independent. They're strong. They're dedicated to family, faith, and freedom. I mean, we're largely a Republican district, which is wonderful. Granted, Buncombe County's got a lot of blue in it. But I would say that the primary characteristic of the people in Western North Carolina, they're just good, red blooded Americans who want to live their life. Uh, they're patriots. And it's really been a blessing to work with them, frankly.
You know, one of the problems that I have found is that our district is definitely really conservative,
Hmm.
very Christian, very family values, very American. If I were to say, and I've lived here for over 40 years in Cherokee County, North Carolina. It's my home. I always say I've lived here the biggest percentage of my useful adult life, as opposed to my useless adult life, and but whatever that means. So, uh, but the point is, I love it here.
Yeah,
I am fiercely independent, and I love the fact that I live in an area that I characterize as live and let live. That's what Cherokee County is. I think that's what the entire Western North Carolina is, that whole string of counties along the Tennessee border. We're live and let live places. And we cherish that.
yeah.
We will fight to preserve that. So how do you reconcile that with the fact that we're dealing with a party that is quite diverse? And there are parts of our party in the East that
Yeah.
I don't think are very similar to what we have out here.
No doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. And I'm not sure I understand what you're saying, but if I guess we need to learn to work together as a unified party across the state because we do have state elections. Um, and how do we do that? I think we find the common goal, we find the common ground, and we work together. And quite frankly, whether it's local elections, whether it's district elections or state elections, the success, the path to success that I have found is to make sure that everyone understands the mission. Stay focused on the mission. And whether you're in the low country of North Carolina, uh, and your fundraisers are all shrimp boils, or if you're in the western part of North Carolina and your fundraisers are all barbecues, if we stay focused on the same goal, we all need to work to get those Republicans elected to public office. And generally, the way you do that's pretty similar across the state. And it's funny, it's talking about how do we avoid feeling, abandoned or neglected by Raleigh because it's the state stops in Asheville. Some of us independent folks might not miss it too much. I think Raleigh recognizes that we deliver a lot of red votes for the state, so they're not as likely to abandon us or forget about us now. But maybe sometimes we just don't want the help because, you know, we're going to get it done ourselves. And I think we demonstrated that when Helene hit. It was a tough time for everybody, but everybody pulled together, and it was pretty amazing to see the result of that.
Yeah, the hurricane was was quite a catastrophe, and that's kind of interesting. It's really interesting that that storm veered east of us at the last moment. Otherwise, we would have been in the eye of the storm here in Cherokee County. I
Right.
think we understand that, and we participate. I know many of my friends here spent a lot of hours trekking supplies, food, whatever, up to the Asheville area to help out in there. That is a humanitarian effort that really transcends political parties, and
It
I,
did.
I was very, very proud of my fellow citizens here who really spent a lot of time and their own personal money buying things and carting them up there. They really needed the help up there, and I'm very proud of what we did. But again, that does transcend party lines.
It did. It brought the best out of human nature. Just brought the best out in people. Whereas I think party politics tends to bring out the worst. If you know, contrast.
So, in terms of kind of bringing the party or having the party be acting in unison,
Mhm.
do do I hear that you intend to use electronic means to have more powwows together, or how do you expect to do that to bring us in line to act together with our party mates in the east of the state?
Well, um, each we've got 14 districts, as you're aware, in North Carolina, and the 14 district chairs stay in pretty close communication. And I think that's probably the most effective way to see, find the common ground, the commonality. Um, so we stay in communication. We talk about, and there's really not that many differences. There's 100 counties, 14 districts. So I think my focus really is more in District 11. I don't see a big disconnect across the state. My job, my role really is to focus in with each county in District 11 and address them individually to talk to them about what is your strategy? Where do you need help? Are there any gaps that you have that I can help close? How are you doing with filling out and populating your precincts and organizing your precincts? Do you know how to get the data from the Board of Elections? Can I help you? Can I show you how to set up your IT folks so that they can download the data on a regular basis and put together your target list? It's an individual work with each county approach, but to minimize the travel or to help counties communicate across the district so they can share best practices, then we take advantage of those technologies that are available today, such as Zoom and other live stream forums. So, I'm not too concerned about unity across the state because, my focus really is winning the elections. I mean, I sound like a broken record, but it really is it's a simple mission. It might be a complicated implementation of the strategies and tactics to accomplish that. So,
I think that we have been very successful, I know, in our county and in most of the 7 western counties, which we belong to. We've been very successful in delivering a red vote to the state. So we must be doing something right. But on the other hand, I think a lot of that is happening because we are so conservative. When I look at the ballot, I don't see a whole bunch of choice. And I think a lot of people out here feel that way.
mm,
So what are you doing in terms of interacting with each individual district? How are you going about that? For instance, you can use our my district as a example, or any district, or any of the counties. But obviously, the party is really it's run county by county by county, and the 11th district is a group of counties. So
mhm.
you must interact with each of them in order for us to work together. How is that going, and what are you doing?
Well, we have what we call executive committee meetings or business meetings, and we have them in person every 2 or 3 months, and then we'll have a Zoom meeting every month so that we can connect and talk. And the executive committee consists of the county chairs, the county vice chairs, members at large, the officers. We have about 64 people on that executive committee with representation across the district from every single county. And we have good participation in those meetings. So if there's best practices or successes that people want to share so that it can be utilized in other counties, that's an opportunity that we offer up with those executive committee meetings. And then if there's questions or issues that people want to present and see if other people can help or if I can help, that's also a good forum for that. So the counties do have an opportunity to interact across the district, and then they have an opportunity to interact with Raleigh and utilize the resources there. And I can function as a bridge between the county and Raleigh to access the state party resources that will help there. The state party has done a tremendous job with offering training. They do the treasurer training. They've helped with the Board of Elections. They've helped with, just the new chairs. In odd years, all of the county, district, and state officers are up for election. They're either reelected or replaced, or they step down, whatever. So there's a lot of turnover just naturally in party leadership. So in odd years, there's a lot more need for training, and we offer that training through either individual visits to the counties, by folks such as myself, or through Zoom meetings and training opportunities with the state. So, that's how we try to stay unified as a county, as a district with each county.
The midterm elections are obviously coming up. You and I both know that they are critically important so that Donald Trump can continue the 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 wonderful things that he's done, and he really has an incredible platform that he's working off, and he needs our support. He needs our support very, very desperately in those midterm elections, because that could derail the train for us, and we certainly don't want that to happen.
Mhm.
How do you see the midterm elections? What kind of trends, national trends, and state trends are you hearing about that we should all know about?
Well, the bad news first. It's tradition in this country that the party in the White House typically loses the Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate frequently. So the trend is against us. However, I think Trump has really changed the culture and the environment of politics so much, and the Republican Party. And I think that he's shown a light on some of the huge issues that have crept into our cultures that people just don't appreciate. So if you look at the current trends for the different parties, the Republican Party is growing by leaps and bounds. I've heard of figures as high as 4.5 million new Republican voters that have come on board in just the last few years, and the Democrat Party is hemorrhaging voters. And you've mentioned before, the unaffiliated is growing also, but the fact remains that the Republican Party is growing at a tremendous rate across the country. And in North Carolina, we are very, very close to exceeding the Democrat number of registered voters. I mean, we're probably a month or two away. I'm monitoring the numbers as well. So the good news is the Republican Party is gaining voters. Trump has helped the Republican Party see what's going on and helped pick, the Republican Party is picking the 80 part of the 80-20 as far as issues. 80% of Americans don't want to see men in women's locker rooms. 80% of Americans want to see the border closed. 80% of Americans want a stronger military. And 80% of Americans want to stop the senseless subsidies for this green energy that seems to be a money laundering racket. So the Republican Party has found their home here. They've become very attractive to a very large number of Republicans, where in the past that just wasn't necessarily the case. So I believe that we have the momentum. I believe we have the growth. I believe we have the candidates, and I believe Trump at the helm of the party is going to break that trend. And I think we have a real strong shot at keeping both the House and the Senate majorities and completing Trump's agenda. I, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for this nation. I think Trump is a very unique individual. I don't see any other elected official having the ability and the capacity and the sheer force of his nature and intellect to accomplish what he's done in such a short time. And you're absolutely right. We need to allow him to complete his agenda. But as a result, I think folks are coming, they're waking up. They like the idea of having uh, law and order in their streets. And I think this country is going to rally around Trump's agenda, and they're going to keep that majority, and we're going to move forward. And I'm very optimistic for this country. I don't think I could have said that 2 years ago, but today it's a great time to be a Republican, and I certainly hope he will continue in that vein.
I really echo, and I everything you just said is so true. And I'm really inwardly thrilled when I hear you say that, because I know so many people agree with you. It is a great time for America. And what happens when you have a country going off the rails like we were, and the majority of people do not like at all what's going on? I mean, I cannot imagine that a sane person would say it's perfectly okay for a male who happens to who look like a woman to participate in women's sports. I don't see how anyone could say that's okay. And as you know, we've had instances where that's really been tragic. We have people who have been seriously injured because of things like that.
Mhm.
There, to me, as a physician, I know, uh, I know that every cell in my body has an X and a Y, and every cell in your body has two X's, and you can't change that. No matter what decorations you hang on the outside, the core is still either male or female genetically. That
Mhm.
is something that the left cannot seem to understand or accept. They don't want to accept that. And I understand that they don't want to accept it because it defeats their agenda of tearing America down and
Mhm.
tearing down everything that we believe in. So these are the kind of things that people are kind of waking up to. It's not at all surprising to me that once someone stood up and said, wait a minute, we're not going to accept this anymore, everyone comes out of the woodwork and says, oh, yeah, right. You're right. We are not going to accept this anymore. That's
Mhm.
really what's happened, hasn't it?
It absolutely has. Trump has made it okay to speak common sense. And it's kind of funny. I look at politics and the country in general, and I've often said uh, there's two childhood stories that kind of explain it all. One of them is the goose that laid the golden egg. And we were on the verge of killing that goose that laid the golden egg before under Biden. The other childhood story that tells so much is the emperor in his new clothes. And Trump, God bless him, he stood up and said, "Ooh, there's no clothes there," and it allowed us all to go, "Oh yeah, yeah." Let's talk about the truth. Let's talk about common sense. We're no longer tiptoeing around trying to accommodate people who have these almost mentally ill positions. And so, yeah, I'm agreeing with you 100%. Don't want to repeat everything that you're saying, but Trump really, like I said, he kind of made it okay for people to say the common sense stuff anymore. And we're on the right track as a result. I didn't think we'd get here so fast, but God bless him.
Well, we're definitely on the right track. And I think that we're on the right track because the left is unhinged. They are out of control. They are totally angry. Everything they do says, I don't know what to do next because I'm getting creamed here. That's what's so great about what's going on now, is there's just a general understanding on our side that we the train is moving and it's moving down the tracks in the right direction. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. You
Hmm.
are the captain of the ship out here in the 11th district. Do you
Hmm.
have a particular strategy for winning that you would like to talk about?
Well, I think that there's no magic, there's no silver bullet. It's hard work, roll up your sleeves, and get the work done. If there was any new twist, and let me back up, to roll up your sleeves and get the work done, we're talking knocking on doors, making phone calls, get the vote out, grow the party. That's the tried and true method. Simple as it sounds, the candidate that gets the most voters to the polls wins. So that's what you do. It's hard work. It's not glamorous. It's not, out there protesting, etc. But one of the things that I think a real missed opportunity last time that we won't miss this time, because we will make sure folks understand the importance, and that is voting down ballot. So if I was going to say, is there a new strategy? It's not really new, but we're going to reemphasize, we're going to make sure that the vote greeters who engage those coming into the polling place, and the voters sometimes will only vote for names they're familiar with and leave the other races blank. They might not know either candidate. They're a little concerned about voting for people like that. So one of the things I would like to see is that we staff every polling place and precinct uh, with vote greeters who have voter guides, who can engage the voters, show them the guide, and assure them that every single name on that guide has been vetted and will serve their office with dignity and with a conservative attitude, approach, philosophy, and encourage them to vote down ballot. Just remember, if we won Trump handily, if everybody had voted, everybody on that ballot, all the way down, that voted for Trump, we would have won every race. If Yeah, and I look at our justice candidate Griffin. If every precinct in Western North Carolina, NC 11, had just had 3 more votes for Griffin, he would have won the whole state. And that's how important those organized precincts really are. And that's how important it's going to be for everybody to vote down ballot. Vote the entire ticket. And that's where we're going to be focusing. It's all about getting the county chairs on board to organize and build out their precincts, grow the party, train the people that will be interacting with the voters, and make sure that we leverage every single one of those red votes out here. You and I have both said we're a very conservative area of the country. We love it. There's a lot of Republicans, and we can really offset some of those blue areas in the state. And I believe folks all across the state recognize that and appreciate us for that. So I don't see disconnects but across the state when it comes to the party. What I see is we're an area that no one can ignore when it comes to elections. We've just got a lot of Republican votes to offer up, and we're planning to squeeze everyone out of this district come November 2026.
I'm really glad to hear you say that. I was about to want to discuss with you something you've already discussed, and very well, and that is the primaries are important only to the party itself. That's where we choose, at least theoretically, the best person to be the face of the Republican Party for that particular race. But
Right.
where the rubber really hits the road is in the general election.
Mhm.
And that's where you and your everyone else who's working under you, that's where your leadership is most important. Your leadership is most important in that general election because you're right. In our county, we don't have a high enough participation. And that is a big problem because what good does it do us to have 80% of the vote Republican if that 80% is not really enough votes to balance the Democrat votes in the eastern part of the state? We
Right.
need to have a much higher participation. So how do you that voting down ballot is great because that's extremely important. But the other side of that coin that's really important is voter participation. People who are sitting down and not going to the polls, what are you going to do to wake them up and say, look, we're all counting on you. You just can't sit on your sofa.
Mhm.
It doesn't take much to go down to the polling place and pull a lever. It takes 5 minutes of your life. You can't let it go by.
That, yeah, when we call that GOTV, get the vote out or get out the vote. And that is key. And again, that's where you roll up your sleeves and you just get to work. There's no silver bullet. There's no one fix. While I was chair of Henderson County, I served as chair for Henderson County for 4 years. And the approach we took was we knocked on doors. We developed walk books and found neighborhoods that were walkable in rural North Carolina. Sometimes you got to be careful with that. But we knocked on doors. We left door hangers with information. We made phone calls. We sent texts out as individuals. We put billboards up reminding people and reminding them of the importance of the election and what our platform was all about. We did radio spots. There's no one thing, but you have to keep hounding people, literally hounding people, and reminding them when the election is, where to vote, what are the dates and times of early voting. We distributed, I guess, close to 64,000 voter guides across Henderson County for the 2020 election. And the voter guides had not only who to vote for, but it had a lot of useful information where, when, and how. So that's, to me, and that's where each county has to take the bull by the horns and do that. They have to keep the importance of the election in front of the voters day in and day out, and build out the precincts, have those precinct volunteers reaching out to their family, their friends, their church. All politics are local and all elections are local, and you just got to hammer it. Got to keep that, what is the definition of a fanatic? Somebody who won't change their mind and can't change the subject. That's the way you got to be when elections are right there around the corner. Everybody you talk to, you're standing in line at the grocery store, turn around and say, hey, are you registered to vote? Are you planning to vote? Put the idea in their head. It sounds, you know, sort of, will it work? Will it work? I said, yeah, but everybody has to participate. It's got to be almost an obsession, and let that obsession spread. You're not going to do it any other way. You can't just, email people and say, go vote. You're going to have to be in their face and get them motivated, get them excited about it. And sometimes get them a little bit afraid of what's going to happen if you don't. Because like you said, we came very close to going off the rails under Biden. And we've got 2 more years after November for Trump to finish his agenda. We cannot squander those 2 years. And we've just got to keep reminding individuals and do it on a personal level, at the county level. And we need to start now, frankly.
So I would imagine we're going to see a lot of you in some of our local counties coming
Mhm.
down and getting the party members to become active. But
Mhm.
I think the most important thing you could do, for instance, I know in our county, is we have to get people to vote. It
Yes.
really is.
Mhm.
And our participation rate is not, it's not terrible, but it's not good enough. Because if everyone here in the county voted, we would have a ton of red votes here, just out of our county, votes that are now not being cast.
Mhm.
And that's where we have the potential for losing. These
Yeah.
people who, after the elections,
Mhm.
see a bad result and say, well, maybe I should have voted. Well, and then they forget about it 2 years later because they still don't vote again. I guess your job is to make sure we know how to reach those people,
Mhm.
wouldn't you say?
Yes, and I know Mark Kephart very well. He's an excellent chair. He's a new chair this term, and he's great to work with, and he's got a great team working with him and for him. So, very receptive to new ideas on how to get that vote out, and that's part of having a positive influence as party leadership, and it's building those relationships with the county chairs so that I mean, we're all volunteers. I joke with the good ones. I say, well, listen, you're getting a big bonus. It's going to be 5 times your salary. but, we're all volunteers, and volunteers are the lifeblood of our party, and they need to feel valued because they are valued. They bring value. And so when you talk about Cherokee County, yes, you guys have a lot of opportunity to contribute to statewide elections. You do an excellent job with your local elections. And I hope to enjoy the time with Mark and his team down the road and work on different ways to grow that turnout, because getting the vote out is half the job, half the success.
Mary, one of the problems that we run into, and I would like you to address this. Party unity is big. It's very, very important.
Mhm.
And in a system in which there are only two major parties, one of the difficulties for people is that each party has a platform. There's, I don't know, 24, 35, however many planks there are in the platform. Most of those planks never even get mentioned when it comes to legislating at
Mhm.
all. But nevertheless, when you start looking at the planks of our party, the
Mhm.
GOP, for instance, or the Democratic Party for that measure, there are a lot of planks that people kind of have to hold their nose and say, "I don't like this at all." But I got to vote for this party because it's the lesser of two evils. And unfortunately, I think that's what we've come to in this country, because it seems either the platform planks of the party are just not uniformly acceptable. The sort of the general feel of the party is, but not some of those planks, some of the things they want to do. And then the other problem is that we have candidates who promise everything, and when they get into power, they don't do what they promise. That's a
Mhm.
big turnoff for people. How do you fight stuff like that?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to, and honestly, probably most of the voting public don't pay that much attention. But what you're talking about are the people who are really active in the party that have tremendous understanding of the details of the platforms, follow the politicians and elected officials very closely. And it really goes down to philosophy. It's going to be hard to describe this in succinct terms, but there's some Republicans who don't want to accept an incremental step in the right direction. They want big sweeping changes all at once. And we've already taught that Trump's a rare breed. He's making big sweeping changes. Most of our success in the legislative process is incremental steps in the right direction. And sometimes that's hard for people to accept, that we didn't take a bigger step. They wanted a bigger step. Why can't we do it all at once? This is the right thing to do. This is our platform. We elected this official to have this person legislate to implement that plank. But that's not reality. That's not life. So, it becomes a philosophy. Can you accept an incremental step and make incremental changes in the right direction, and then come back to the apple another day to take another bite from a better position? So part of it is trying to help folks understand that, yeah, we're not going to get everything at once. So we need to at least appreciate when we do make a move in the right direction. And yes, there are going to be people who accept, well, there you go, 80-20 again. They may like 80% of our platform and dislike 20%. So what people really need to recognize and understand is, find the platform and the candidates that agree with you more than the other side, shall I say. Find the one that most agrees with your worldview and work to make that uh, become your goal, what you're going to support in the elections, et cetera. I mean, I know it can be very divisive when a candidate underperform or an elected official underperforms once they're in office, but like I said, it becomes it's reality. Can we take a smaller step and make an improvement, or do we get nothing done and wait till the next opportunity? So, how do we get that message across? Conversations, social media. It's definitely one of the biggest challenges I have.
I think that's a good way of looking at that, and I certainly understand that. That I think one of the things that happened with Trump is when he was elected in 2016,
Mm-hmm.
he went to Washington and he said, "Look, I'm the CEO of a big company. I'm the captain of the ship. I'm going to do everything I want." And that led to problems for him because he didn't understand how Washington works. That
Yep.
there is a give and take. There are things you have to compromise on in order to get your way, or at least get most of your way.
Mm-hmm.
One of the great things that I've seen is during the 4 years when Trump was not in office, he learned his lesson. I don't know if he did it himself or he was coached, but the result has been amazing because now he is in power and he understands completely what he has to do to get his way. He's learned. Now, a lot of the things that he did in his first term, like the judges that he put in office that are still in office, I mean, that's helping him out now. But pretty much he understood that you have to play ball to some degree in order to get what you want.
Mm-hmm.
I look, however, at the state of North Carolina, and I'm in some ways a little disappointed in the fact that we have almost a veto proof majority in the legislature. And we had something that many, many people out here wanted, and that was constitutional carry in North Carolina. And it passed. And then, of course, the Democrat governor vetoed it. The
Mm-hmm.
problem was in trying to override his veto is that some of the GOP legislators who voted for the law in the first place would not vote to overturn the veto. Some of us look at that and very displeased to see things like that. It
Yeah.
wasn't any of our guys out here, but those were some of the people out east who did that. That's a very disappointing thing to work very hard for something we think is important and to come up empty because some people in our party defected.
Yeah. No. No argument there. And those people will vote. Uh, if they get the opportunity and they don't agree with those decisions, that's pretty. That's a pretty tough uh, nut to crack. If somebody voted for a bill and then refuses to vote to overturn, to override a veto, I'd have to look at the case by case, but just at face value, makes no sense, and it will make it very difficult for them to get reelected. And those are the types of things. You're not wrong. Those are the types of things that drive people away from the party, and they say, "What's the use? What's the use?" And I keep coming back saying, you know, on the balance, we're better. On the balance, we're making progress. Don't let small setbacks, you know, a few bad apples ruin the whole barrel. Let's keep marching forward. Not let these small setbacks or a few setbacks. These are kind of big, but they don't represent the entire party, and they don't represent what we can do if we work together.
I think your overall view of things is certainly very comforting to me.
Mhm.
And I think you have a very good handle, Mary Guy, on how you need to do things and what are the important areas that you need to focus on. That is what we need out here in our area because as you said, and you said it so well, we are like the biggest bank of red votes that you could possibly imagine.
Mhm.
It's like we've got billions and billions of gold bullion in our coffers, and we're
Mhm.
not we're not at the point where we're spending it completely in order to get what we want in
Yeah.
the state
Mhm.
and nationally, of course. And I think your job is to harness that energy, harness that potential and make it work for the country, make it work for our counties
Mhm.
individually, for our citizens individually.
Yes,
So, and I think that you have the potential to do that.
I appreciate that. That's certainly what I'll be spending every bit of my time working on for the next year and a half. So, yep.
I really I get a feeling that I know you will. So, in closing, would you like to give us some of your closing thoughts? What could
Well,
you say to us?
I will say, help us get these Republicans elected. Get involved. If you're not involved with your local party, if you've been involved and you were disappointed and you feel like it's not worth it, I say, please give us a second chance. Get involved. We need people. We need people to do the work. We can get this done in Western North Carolina. It's so important, but we can't do a thing without the volunteers. So my plea to anyone who's listening tonight or hears things down the road, pick up the phone, go to the internet, find your local GOP headquarters, your local GOP organization, call them and ask, how can I help? I'd like to get involved. Ask them if there's a precinct chair for the precinct you live in. But whatever you do, if it's 1 hour a week or 10 hours a week or whatever time you have, please get involved and help us get that vote out. Thank you.
Mary Guy, the new district chair, District 11 chair of the North Carolina GOP, thank you so very, very much for being a guest on Freedom Forum Live tonight. You've given us a fantastic insight into your concept of what you're going to do, because we need every vote, and I bet you're going to get every vote.
Do my
Thank you.
best. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.